Good evening, Stevens Point, and welcome back to another episode of the Sports Hub. I'm your host, Will Haroldson, and alongside me, as always, are my partners, Brody Kupsky, and rejoining us, Ashton Parker. We have a lot to get into today, and we will just jump right into it when we return. Now for your UWSP athletic updates. The Pointers football team's rough season continued last Saturday as the Pointers were thumped by UW-Oshkosh on Senior Day. After what was a promising first half of football, the Pointers just could not execute where they needed to, and the Titans took advantage of that, burying them 45-0. Saturday's loss extends the Pointers' WIAC Conference losing streak to 15 games heading into this Saturday's season finale in Whitewater. So Ashton, you and I called the game, and the Pointers' offense had been steadily improving from game to game before that, but it seemed like all of that progress just really went out the back window in Saturday's loss to UW-Oshkosh. So what happened there for them to just fall apart like that?
I'm not sure. It possibly could have been the level of talent that they faced against. They went from UW-Eau Claire, who, while they're not the greatest football team, they've been doing. They're okay, but they're just above Stevens Point in terms of rankings. They're the second worst team in the WIAC. Their only conference win being against Stevens Point. So it could be that level of increased level of talent. However, I would say that, and then you look at the game against lacrosse, and they scored 13 points there, which is 13 more points than they scored against Oshkosh. So, I'm not very sure what happened. I guess another thing you could say would be weather. It was not a very great day in terms of weather that day, very cold. It was very wet for most of the game. Towards the end, it started to clear up a bit more, but overall, it was just not a great day out. So you could attribute it to that. But, I feel like there's not really one really reason why they just didn't do great, I don't think.
Yeah, and they were even playing another good quarter when the defense is playing well. They even had a pick that could have been a pick six. But then in that little part when I was talking about execution, Stevens Point not being able to get those big plays have been what their downfall in this season, right? They haven't been able to hook up on these big plays, which could have been a couple touchdown passes against Stout, or just being able to maybe get a good block and take that pick to the end zone for point. They just haven't been able to execute. But it's what do you do to fix that?
I don't know if it's just an execution problem or what it is, whatever it is. You just got to score when you have the opportunities. If you're not going to, you get down to the red zone and don't do anything with it, it's not helping your case of, trying to win this game. You got to just fire on all cylinders and try to score. Even if it doesn't work out, which as it clearly shows, it hasn't worked out, you got to try something.
Yeah, and we were, Ashton, a few times, even some of the backups would come in. Charlie Smith came in for a little bit at the end, and he had some bright spots. But, let's look forward to next season because obviously this season, the home season are over. We're done with broadcasts here, so you're not going to see Pointers football until next August, late August, early September. What are ways for Stevens Point to really, I don't want to say turn things around quickly, but how can they get into the win column and improve their season from what is more than likely going to be a winless WIAC conference record?
I think what they need to do is just try their best just to steadily improve everything, really. Because, like I said earlier, the season's biggest downfall wasn't just one thing. I felt like there was just a couple. There's several things that just weren't going well happening at the exact same time, and that really led to the downfall of this team. So I think what needs to happen over this off season is that they need to just, I don't know, I don't want to say just keep doing what they're doing because obviously what they're doing is not working right now. So I guess my thing is just take the year, just try and improve yourself in any way you can, because any sort of improvement will be positive improvement. And I guess it's just a thing of like, I'm not really well versed or well knowledgeable in this sort of area. So I'm giving out these like vague statements, but at the same time, the issue of Pointers football is very broad. There's not really something you can specialize and focus in on. So take this last game, figure out the broad stuff of like what overall can we improve. And I think if you can focus on that and just steadily improve over time in a broad sense, then start focusing on the specific stuff, and then over time you will see improvement.
Yeah, and this season could be another one of those cases where after everything's done, you guys just have a team meeting and you just lay everything out and just say, okay, we got to be better, right? And I don't, how effective can those kind of things be for a team that really just struggled, as Ashton said, in everything? There just really wasn't an area that, sure, they had some nice glimpses. The offense was picking it up a little bit for a couple games, but really everything just fell apart in that Oshkosh game. But piggyback off of what Ashton said, what do you think at Stevens Point can do to change things around here?
I think it's just getting the guys together, talk about, hey, this is what we can improve on, and we're going to work on it all off season. You have all of winter, all of spring, all of summer to work on fine-tuning a lot of your offensive plays, fine-tuning your defense, special teams, just pretty much just working on everything, like Ashton said. There isn't just one thing, it's a lot of things. And once you fix those things, it'll become easier to see, okay, we can improve a little bit on this, we can improve a little bit on that. It's just really working on the little things and also working on, patching up the issues that are being shown throughout the WIAC season.
Well, let's change to a little more positive topic, shall we? The Pointers volleyball team's magical run through the WIAC Conference Tournament unfortunately fell a little short in the championship game as the Pointers fell to UW Whitewater Warhawks 3-1. However, despite the loss, the Pointers have much to celebrate because for the third consecutive year, the Pointers are dancing in the NCAA tournament. Stevens Point will be taking on Coe College this Thursday at 5:30 p.m. in Minnesota. So guys, if you remember, the Pointers played Coe College earlier this season. They beat them 3-0. What are you looking for in this upcoming Thursday's rematch game?
You don't scare me!
I'm really high on the Pointers right now. I think I was in Oshkosh for that semifinal game against the Titans, where the Pointers ultimately upset them and was a really great game. And the Pointers showed a lot of resilience because, they lost the first set, was able to really beat down the Titans the second set. Then they got beat down the third set, and now you're down 2-1, and they're able to bounce back and win two really great sets, set 4 and 5. It was really close stuff, but it's just a very resilient team. They're able to really clutch things up when the time is needed, and if I'm correct, they were able to beat Coe College earlier in the season. So doesn't mean to take them lightly. They're in the tournament for a reason. However, I think Stevens Point has the makings of a team that can really do some damage this tournament.
Yeah, if you look at the region that Stevens Point is in, actually, if they win 2 games. They're actually in the region that Whitewater's in, so if they somehow were to make it to that third game, they could potentially have a rematch again with the Warhawks. But yeah, like we said, like Ashton was alluding to, Stevens Point kind of hit their stride going into after they were able to knock off Oshkosh, who had for 19 straight games been the best team in the WIAC and number 8 in the country. So what is a win like that? I know they lost the championship game, but what is a win like beating Oshkosh do for your Stevens Point team going to the NCAA tournament?
Well, we can look past to the final of the WIAC tournament, but it was a huge win for the Pointers against Oshkosh. Like you said, 19 straight games where they won, or matches where they won. That does a lot for you, especially since earlier in the season they had lost 3-1, 3-1, and in the tournament, they played their hardest, like Ashton said. They played out of their minds and somehow won. Now, we talk about playing Coe College. They had beaten them earlier in the season, but it was the second game of the season, so, hard to say. A lot of things could change. Like Ashton said, they're in the tournament for a reason. So, they have a lot of confidence going in. Pointers do, but you know, it's the NCAA tournament now. It's make or break. You got to play your hardest.
Right, and this is a situation where Stevens Point is all too familiar with, it being a neutral site location where they were undefeated this year, and we were talking about the impact that can have on the NCAA tournament. What do you think that's going to have for Stevens Point in this little run here?
Yeah, as you said, the neutral site is where the Pointers played best, and being undefeated in a neutral site just does a lot to a team's confidence in those type of situations. Because neutral sites are never easy because it's equal footing for both teams. You don't really have that underdog feel of going in against like in an away arena, but you don't have that. You don't have the level of support from like a home arena, so it's really interesting. But being in a neutral site, I think is where the Pointers shine the most. They're able to really just show they're able to show their number one quality, I think, at their best in neutral sites. And like I said, that quality is their resilience and their ability to stay in game. So I think the Pointers are looking really, really good heading into this NCAA tournament because you have a massive win like Oshkosh. Yeah, you lost to Whitewater, but ultimately, not a lot of people expect you to go past Oshkosh. So you're feeling really good going into it, and they were able to keep Whitewater. They've been able to win a set, keep things close. Lost in 5 sets in the regular season to Whitewater. So I think the Pointers are looking really, really good heading into this tournament.
And there's a few sets that maybe if they go different ways against Whitewater, we have potentially a different outcome. Ultimately, Whitewater wins the conference tournament and the regular season, so they're the outright WIAC conference winners. But does that stick in your mind that you have a potential rematch with the team that took you out in the championship game down the road?
I think so, but you got to kind of worry about the games that you have now. Obviously, yeah, you would love to play Whitewater and beat them, but like you don't play them right away. You got to go through a few teams just to get to them, and who knows if Whitewater even wins. I mean, granted, they're a great team, but for all you know, they could lose their games and not advance. So you just got to kind of worry about the games that you have now and beat Cole College and then beat whoever you play next.
Yeah, like we said, the game is going to be this Thursday at 5:30 p.m. You can find the game on the Pointers website, Pointers volleyball page on the athletic department. Well, next, the Pointers men's hockey team's rough start to the season just got a little bit more difficult as their star 6th-year goaltender Ryan Wagner left Friday's matchup against Gustavus Adolphus in the second intermission. Matthias Smith would spell Wagner for the rest of the game, which would see the Pointers tie the Golden Gusties 2-2. Smith made his first collegiate start against the Saints on Sunday, where he recorded 24 saves in the Pointers' first win of the regular season. So guys, the Pointers fall out of the top 15 rankings, and there's a lot to take away from this weekend's games. What was the most impactful thing in your mind of what happened this weekend?
I think just getting, tying Gustavus Adolphus, that kind of hurts their confidence. I mean, they did get a win in KB Willard Arena for this year for now, which is nice, but it looked rough. When I was watching it, it was just like, this is not the same team as it was last year, and it's almost frustrating. But it's early in the season, so you can't judge it based off of that. But there's a lot of things that they can improve on. But we're early in the season, so give them a little bit of slack.
Yeah, and I want to make a comparison to this, Ashton. This team for the Pointers feel like, in a lot of ways, they're very similar to the Brewers this year. This team is too talented to be performing this way. 0 of 14 on the power plays this year. That is just a stat that is just not acceptable. They can't have that. They're just a different team that they can be doing better.
Yeah, and there's a really great quote from a video I watched about MLB teams that they make the playoffs. Obviously, the Brewers were a team is a team that is too good to be bad, but too bad to be good. And I don't think just yet this Pointers team is like that because, it's easy to knock down the Pointers for only tying Gustavus Adolphus. However, I think there still is some merit because it's not like they've gotten blown out. Their only loss was an 0-1 loss to St. Norbert in OT. They tied St. Norbert, who, are they still ranked? I'm not entirely sure. They are? Okay, so that looks okay still. It's not the worst thing in the world. And they did win. It wasn't by a lot, but they still win. So I think, as Brody said, I'm going to cut them I'm going to cut them a little bit slack because all the games have been close. 3 or 4 of them went to OT. All the losses / ties went to OT. Sorry about that. And I think it's just a little early on in the season to really make these big adjustments of this team sucks, let's stop watching it. It's a little early for that. So I'm personally just gonna, reel it back a little bit. We'll see what happens. But no, seriously, 0 for 14 on power plays they need to fix something because I heard another comment. It was like, we're better when we're at the numbers disadvantage, we're better. And when we are at the numbers advantage, we are worse.
Yeah, it would definitely seem that way. I mean, you being a spectator in the pep band, you get a front eye view of it all. I'm being up there in the box doing some of the games for 90, and man, that power play unit every time, it's such I don't understand. Like, from a standpoint of, like, what is it that you can do to improve? Because at this point, you're 0-14. Anything you can do, you can improve on it, but how do they get better at this? Because if they want to get back to where they were last year and compete for a national championship, a 0 for 14 in the power play is unacceptable.
Well, I agree with that. And I think it's just maybe taking more shots. Granted, they did take a lot more shots against St. Scholastica in the power play. But, when we were calling the game against St. Norbert, I mean, they didn't take shots in some of their power plays, and they got enough power play opportunities to take shots. But maybe it's just taking more shots, getting their goalie off balance, and just finding the open hole there. Maybe it's that. Who knows? It's hard to say what can improve a power play besides taking more shots and maybe getting more passes perfected.
Yeah, I will add. Taking shots is important, and there was a power play this last Saturday where Stevens Point was in it, and there was a face-off, and it came up and almost took out me and Liam. But we were on the move. We were ready for it.
We almost had a casualty.
Yeah, we almost had a casualty, but we made it. But so Stevens Point now hits the road for 2 straight games. They're going to be going over to Minnesota to play games before they come back for the WIAC home opener against UW Stout here. And we were talking about it before this. I mean, obviously, these couple games in Minnesota, these are going to be big for Stevens Point's confidence because coming home to play UW Stout is playing exceptionally well to start the season this year.
Yeah, without question. I mean, they had beaten Augsburg, ranked 4th in the nation at the time. They beat them in overtime 3-2, which is really good for them. And Stout, I mean, they haven't lost a game yet. Obviously, we're only 4 games in the season, so it could change between now and then. But Stout, as they're putting on the broadcast, they're high flying. I mean, they're scoring everything. They play well defensively, and they're just really good right now.
Yeah, and it's unique for Stout because not that they've been bad over the past couple of years, but they've never really started this well off the season. They've always kind of started off pretty mediocre, but this year they have 9-2 wins, 9-1 wins, 6-2 wins. This is a team, while, like Brody said, we're early in the season, Pointers may have to watch out for.
Yeah, I feel like the Pointers, most of the teams in the WIAC seem to just be pretty solid this year. So I feel like it's going to be a much more tighter race than it usually is. And I think, of course, when it comes to Stout with how they started, I think this, with them starting so as well as they are, it's these next couple of games in Minnesota, the Pointers are really going to have to, hopefully look at their performances at home, look at them, say, that's not good, go to Minnesota and hopefully see signs of improving those mistakes, mainly the power play. Because honestly, it's there's not much there's really needs to, I don't know how much else there really needs to be working on other than power play, because their power play is atrocious.
It really is, and I think that's putting it lightly too,
Yeah.
because there have been some sequences where it has been very bad. But this team has shot, I mean, there's some shots, like there was a shot that Wilson Northey had against Gustavus that was an absolute laser. There was a shot against Saint Scholastica the following game. I believe it was by Andrew Polias that was just a ridiculous goal. So this team has everything it needs to be a WIAC contender and back to the national championship. But one of the things they're missing right now is Ryan Wagner. And, you know, after he left that game on Friday, there was a lot of speculation to what happened. And, you know, I was actually sitting up in the booth having conversations with people up there, and nobody really knew what was going on. I guess we'll be able to find that out as the weeks keep going on. But to credit Matthias Smith, he came in and was cool, calm, and collective, spelling Wagner, and then got his first W of his collegiate career, and looked really good too. 24 saves for your first official start and only giving up one goal and in a 2-1 victory. That is a very good start for a player.
Without question. I mean, him and Alex Proctor, young goalies on the Pointers team here, they've been looking pretty solid. I mean, Proctor against St. Norbert, which is a really tough opponent to start your first game out, he held them pretty well. I mean, he gave up one goal, and credit to him and Johnny Roberts of St. Norbert. They played a heck of a game, both of them. But it's looking good for the young Pointers on this hockey team. But obviously, without Wagner there, it's kind of hard to play without him.
He's such a key piece to this team, and Stevens Point's going to have to find ways to stay strong in the net here. They definitely have the young talent to do so. It's just they got to figure out how to piece things together. Well, that's going to do it for your UWSP athletic updates. So we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll have some regional sports action. So don't go away, because we'll be right back.
The Media Studies is a program for people who love to tell stories, whether that be in written form, visual, or audio.
Media Studies is exciting because it's always fresh, it's always new.
Media is at the center of everything we do. More and more people are asked to engage with media and use media. Our program really provides students with skills and techniques to be better prepared for that in the future.
We offer courses in media production, both video and audio, nonfiction and fiction, music production, journalism, film studies.
Media Studies is a great way to get hands-on experience in the field that you're looking to do. They teach you the basic concept behind everything, and then they tell you to go do it.
We really pride ourselves on thinking of a wide set of opportunities that we can give our students.
The student organizations are a great asset. We have SPTV, the student television organization, 90 FM, the radio, and the Pointer, our student-run newspaper.
It's a great way for students to get involved, learn skills that they need for class, and meet new people.
Some great facilities where our students can hone their skills.
There's a giant studio in the center of the comm building. I've had quite a few classes in there.
A lot of our classes are very hands-on, they're very interpersonal.
You're getting the skills that will allow you to create your future, and I think that's what makes it a truly amazing experience for students.
There's an incredible range of options for graduates. We've had students go out and become independent contractors, work for radio stations, newspapers, with TV stations.
Everyone is different, and they have their own unique style. In all the classes and all the student organizations you get involved in, you have a lot of flexibility to really create your own work and do it in a way that means something to you.
We're excited to see what students are making and what they want to make, and how we can help students get from where they are to where they want to be.
I'm in a video production class that's teaching me how to film documentaries. I'm also in a screenwriting class, and I get to learn how to write movies. So I'm doing all these different cool things, and I love it every day.
Welcome back to the Sports Hub. Let's get into some regional sports action. The Milwaukee Bucks are 9-0 to start the season, which is the league's best and only undefeated record. After the 9th straight win to open the season, the Bucks set a franchise record for the best starting record through 9 games to start the season. So you guys, this has been a rather crazy start. What have you made? What do you make of this 9-0 start for Milwaukee?
Yeah, this Bucks team it's something special right now, especially in a conference like the Eastern Conference, which is looking to be the better of the two this year. You got teams like Cleveland, Boston. I know there are a few more. Chicago's still good. Miami, I'm thinking is going to pick some slack up. So you got a lot of great teams, but Milwaukee's been proving that they're still the top dog of the Eastern Conference like they have been for the past few years. And I think the key piece of that has been the depth of their bench, because the big thing that the big question mark that the Bucks had going the season was how are they going to start without Chris Middleton, their second best player, or Pat Connaughton, one of their key bench pieces, or Joe Ingles, their big free agent signing of the offseason. And as you see right now, best defense in the NBA, I think it's third best net in the NBA. I think the other two are Cleveland and Phoenix, and just really solid stuff. And you also got credit Coach Budenholzer. He seemed to adjusted some things, and the biggest issue that the Bucks had was the amount of open three-point shots that they allowed. They went from the worst in the league at that to around like top 5. So it's really impressive stuff by the Bucks as a whole.
Yeah, and they play tonight. They're going to be taking on the next couple games. I believe they're going to be taking on Atlanta a few times, and then they're hitting a little bit of a road trip here. So they're 2-0, or they're 2-0 on the road, and they're 7-0 at home here. But this start has been pretty crazy. 9-0. I mean, and they're without two of their best players in Pat Connaughton, and we don't know how Joey Ingles is going to fit into this, but this has been impressive.
Yeah, without question. I mean, playing without Chris Middleton, who is arguably the second best player on the team, it's tough to play without him, as we saw in the playoffs last year. It's been pretty good for the Bucks. Right now, they're going to be playing Atlanta tonight, Monday, November 7th. They go and play OKC at OKC, and then at San Antonio, where San Antonio's been all right this season, so don't overlook them. But they go back home to play against Atlanta and Cleveland, and then they play at Philadelphia to round out next week. Looking at some standings too, the Bucks obviously top the East, but Cleveland 8-1 this season. I mean, kind of underrated considering how it's been for them the last few years. So credit to Cleveland, but the Bucks, it's almost like their league to lose. I mean, they have the talent to do it, and they're without guys like we've said. They're without Chris Middleton, Pat Connaughton, Joe Ingles. I mean, that's all guys that are really talented. They bring a lot to the team, but playing without them, I mean, it's almost put them in championship, contention.
And I'll pose this question to you. There's no doubt that Chris Middleton and Pat Connaughton and those guys make this team a better team. But should Coach Budenholzer quickly put them into the lineups? Because sometimes if you see, let's say Chris Middleton is set to come back, do you think Coach Budenholzer will start him the first game? Because you never know how that may mess up with the team's chemistry and momentum going on here.
Okay, yeah, that is a really tough question, especially now after this good start. However, I think in terms of Chris Middleton, I think you do start him right away. And I think the main reason why I think this is because I don't really know how much team chemistry you're really messing up. The Bucks have been known for the past couple of years to have the best chemistry in the NBA. It's one of their main reasons why they're so good. And so I don't know really how much that's going to mess up. But, I don't know how drastic the changes are going to be with Chris Middleton adding back to the lineup. But you kind of just have to base, the judgment off of previous years, which obviously Chris Middleton has been amazing these past few years. So I feel like it's kind of a waste if you don't put Chris right when he's healthy. I feel like it's a little bit of a waste if you don't put him right away back into the lineup. But I think, it still is a tough question because you have guys like Javon Carter, Grayson Allen, who's been really stepping up in his absence. So, there's people that I do wish could stay in the lineup. I really hope Javon Carter could stay in the lineup. He has been a steal for the Bucks from the Brooklyn Nets. He's been amazing. So it's just a question of, I think you do, but try and figure out how you can still put some of those other players in it.
And yeah, so let's play a little devil's advocate now. What are reasons for why you would maybe start Chris Middleton on the bench here? Not that he's a bench player, but what are some reasons for why you put him on the bench and move him back up to that position?
I think just giving him time to just kind of heal up, and you don't want to force him in right away. Maybe you do force him in right away and he gets hurt right away. You don't want that to happen. You just kind of want to work his way into the lineup, kind of get his footing back and just get back into the groove of things. Now, obviously, if he just balls out right away, why not put him back? But it's kind of with any sport. You just got to kind of integrate them a little bit in and just keep them healthy enough to where they'll play well, but they won't, hurt themselves right away.
I know we made earlier in the beginning of the year, we made some NBA Finals predictions, and I'm sticking with mine, even though it's probably a little unlikely. I went with Milwaukee and Memphis in the NBA Finals, which a Western Conference team may be a little bit of a stretch, but they have John Morant, so he's always great. But if you guys said right now, obviously we're a little biased towards the Bucks. Who do you think are your NBA Finals teams?
I guess I'd have to go with Bucks and probably Warriors. I mean, the Warriors have been pretty solid this season, obviously. They've been on a little bit of a losing streak now, but they have the talent to do it. And as we all see, they have the best players for a reason. So them and the Bucks would be, I would say, a pretty good series. Now, I feel like they would have the Bucks number because just the experience in the finals. But the Bucks, the way they're playing right now, I mean, I would say no doubt they don't make the final. I would say no doubt they make the finals. But we say that now, and it's gonna come back to slap us in the face and say, hey, yeah, you guys were wrong. So I can't always predict early finals, but I have a good feeling the Bucks will go pretty far.
All right, Ashton, let's hear yours.
So I'm going to respectfully disagree on the Warriors take because I think the Warriors are not very good this year. Yeah, they have the best players, but yeah, they have Curry, but Klay Thompson hasn't been very good. Draymond Green has not been very good. Everyone but Curry has just not been very good this year. So I think they're either a play-in team or they're not making the playoffs. I don't think they're top 6, not even close. However, when it comes to who's the best in the Western Conference, that's such a weird question because it's such a weird conference this year. There's so many teams that are doing well that no one thought that they were going to be doing well. I think in the West, I know Phoenix is doing really well, so it might be them. However, I'm going to go off the first couple weeks. Give me Milwaukee, Utah. Utah has been looking amazing recently. They gave up their key players in Gobert and Donovan Mitchell, and they somehow got better. So I don't know how long they're really. If I'm going to realistically go, I'd probably just go Milwaukee, Phoenix 2 in the 2023. But I think it'd be really interesting if Utah just continues to ball out like they have been. So I'm going to say Milwaukee, Utah.
That would be really interesting and it'd be a unique kind of change in pace from what the NBA Finals are. Now we get into our final segment in today's episode. We're going to finish how we normally do. We're doing our Rank 'em segment. If you're new to this is where we all give our top 3 moments from last week's sports. So I'll go first, and then we'll go Brody, and then we'll finish up with Ashton this week. So for me, I'll go with my number 3 spot here. And for that, it's just going to seem a little strange, but I'm going to go with the Astros World Series. I could be a lot higher. Just a few crazy things happened this weekend. So I'm going to go with the Houston Astros winning the World Series. And, we were talking about it. This seems like they won this one legit this time.
Hopefully, yeah.
They won it 4-1. They won it 4-1 over Philadelphia, who had an amazing final stretch to end the year. Obviously, they wish they could have won it all, but they should be proud to get there. And that's a good squad. It's a bummer they didn't finish that way, but it is what it is. And then number 2, I'm going to go with the Bucks, starting off 9-0. They have just looked clearly the best team in the entire NBA. Now, look out for Cleveland because they're very good as well. But Milwaukee being 9-0, that's a great start to the season. And then I'm going to go with 2-parter at number 1. I'm going to go with upsets in the SEC at number 1 in college football. Georgia obliterating Tennessee. And that one maybe seems like it was a little closer in the end because Georgia won by 14. It was a 27-13 ending, but Tennessee really was never in that game. And then LSU beating Alabama. LSU handing Alabama their second loss before Thanksgiving. That has never happened in Nick Saban's tenure. So those are going to be my top moments of the weekend, SEC updates, upsets. Brody, your turn.
So I'm going to start with some college football. Really, this whole college football It's been pretty insane this past weekend. Kansas versus Oklahoma State, number 18th Oklahoma State. Kansas won 37-16, a pretty solid game out of them, and they punched their ticket into a bowl game. So it's the first time since 2008 that they haven't played in a bowl game since then. So pretty good on Kansas for winning. Like you said before, Alabama lost to LSU, which, as we said before, when Bama loses, America wins. So that's a huge victory out of them. My number 2, I'm going to go out of left field here. Joey Logano just won the NASCAR championship at Phoenix. The race was kind of marred by Ross Chastain allegedly turning Chase Elliott, which incited the fan base to, well, I would say riot, but it's pretty close to that. But Joey Logano joins a few past champions in winning 2 championships in the last 10 years, which is pretty good out of him, especially since he was super consistent this season. So good on Joey Logano, sliced bread as he's called. Great job, Joey Logano. So, and my number 1, I have to go with the Milwaukee Bucks and their 9-0 start. A pretty solid season already, considering they were missing 3 guys that could potentially make the team even better than what it is. So really great start by the Bucks, and hope for the best for the rest of the season.
All right, here we go. So, I guess number 3, I'll go with LSU beating Alabama. Man, love it when Alabama loses. I love it when their fan base melts down. And that possibly can knock them out of playoff contention. I hope so. I'm going off of my 2-loss rule, but it's Alabama, so they can just break through anything. So very happy about that. Also good for LSU, great win. Number 2, I'm going to go Bucks 9-0 start. Again, amazing stuff there. They've just looked like the best team, and like Brody said, it's their league. It's their championship to lose this year, basically. So I think it's looking very well. Number 1, I could be Pointer biased. I'm going to go with Pointers Volleyball beating Oshkosh. I think that was just such an insane win for Stevens Point, and as we said, Oshkosh for 19 games are looking like the best team in the WIAC. Top 10 in the nation. They were underneath Whitewater in terms of WIAC standings, but overall they were above them. So really insane upset, and it's looking really good ahead of the NCAA D3 tournament.
Well, that's going to do it for another episode of the Sports Hub. If you liked what you saw, why not check out the other content we have here at SPTV. I want to thank you all again for watching this week's episode, and have a great night.